I just felt it was so full of love and warmth and fear and family. And then Viv comes in and he has such a good voice and they would have sang the whole song. And I said to him, you know, you can protect her. Peter DeLuise said that when he found him. He was like, oh my God, this guy's a natural.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to welcome Siobhan Devine to the podcast today. Hi, Siobhan.
Hi, nice to meet
Those of you
you.
that don't know, Siobhan directs When Calls the Heart, and this season, in season 12, you directed block 5. Is that correct?
Correct.
Episodes 9 and 10. So thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. I love talking about the show.
So this was your 5th season to direct on When Calls the Heart.
Correct.
Do you
Yes.
have a favorite place that you always like to shoot from?
You know, I always love, I mean, I like a lot of the locations, but I have a particular love for the stable, partly because I love horses and I love being around horses. And yeah, and it's just, it's sort of like outside, but inside. The lighting's great. And yeah, so that's probably my very favorite place, actually.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, and we're going to talk about a particular scene that I found interesting that you shot that scene in the stable. So that'll be fun to talk about. What about challenging locations?
Challenging locations. I mean, every location really has its challenges, I think. The like Coulter's office is quite challenging because of all the windows. So all the windows are wonderful, but then, you know, it rains in Vancouver. So there's a lot of windows, but then there's a lot of rain, and then there's people coming in and out in the rain, and then there's extras having to walk, the background performers walking around in the rain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's all those windows, so you always have to have people in the townspeople walking around. So I would say that's a fairly challenging location, mostly because of that.
Okay.
And then the other location that is a little bit challenging is the pharmacy because it's very small.
Small. Yeah.
Yeah. Another of my favorite, by the way, I love shooting in the cafe. It's one of my super favorite places to shoot because it's like because it has the kitchen and the cafe and I don't know, the light is so beautiful in there and people have a reason for being in there.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I really love shooting there as well.
That's awesome. Any other challenges aside from just like particular sets? I know you mentioned the rain. We've heard that the flies are always a they're always a favorite on set.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I normally direct block 5, 4 or
Yeah.
5. So it means that I'm working in September, October, not so many flies.
They're out of there by then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So you have flies or you have rain.
Yeah.
I did shoot, I think I shot block 2 1 year, maybe it was season 9. And yeah, I was hot
Yeah.
and full of flies. Like I was like, no. So, you know, whatever, whenever you shoot, there's always something.
Always a challenge.
Yeah.
So, one of the first scenes in episode 9 is a walk and talk with Rosemary and Elizabeth and Goldie and Little Jack. And we've heard that Ellie, who plays Goldie, loves to wave at the crew as they're doing their little walks through Main Street. Did you have any sort of an experience like that filming with her, or can you talk a little bit about that walk and talk?
Well, you know, we did the walk and talk, that walk and talk from very far away. So, so it meant that like we did do like a pull with the I think I'm pretty sure we did a pull with the Steadicam, but we did a big walk and talk on the track. So we were far away for that. So it wasn't, you know, we weren't kind of in her
Yeah.
immediate environment.
Yeah.
But what I love about Ellie is like the first year she came, she was so shy. And now she's like it's like her second home, you
Yeah.
know, and she just loves everyone. And so we just make sure that there's something to look at, you know,
Mhm.
if we're that close, like that's more interesting than a person.
Yeah.
But the Pascal and Calvin are so amazing with her, and Aaron, like they can really keep her engaged, and also the other children. So everybody works, like the cast also work hard to keep her engaged, be so that she's not doesn't care so much about us, because we're actually not that interesting. We're all dressed in black.
Yeah.
And we're all doing something, right? So, it's probably not as interesting for her as the people that she's actually working with. Yeah. So it's wonderful to watch her grow into the role of being a little actress, though.
Mhm.
It's really cute.
Her mom is so good about sharing pics out on social media to kind of let us know about her experience. And you can just tell that she just loves being on set,
Loves it.
all
Yeah.
over visiting. So it's going to be fun to see, even going forward, uh, how she just continues to blossom into a little young actress.
Yes. Yeah. I can't wait.
So that moment was interrupted because Nathan walked up to tell Elizabeth that he was going to be going on a stakeout. And it was an opportunity for them to do one of their little check in phrases that we're so used to, the be safe. Um, Fans found it interesting. I know out on social media, many of them were like, "Where was the kiss?" And then others were like, "Oh, it's the first time that we've seen him kind of touch her chin," and it's funny to talk about that, but it's what Hearties talk about, those little bitty moments and those little decisions that are made. Was that scripted? Was there a conversation about that was how he was going to kind of let her know that everything was going to be okay?
So wonderful that you raised that, because it's one of those things that happens while we're shooting.
Hmm.
And so he originally was touching her arm,
Okay.
but we were too tight. So I'm like, we can't see that. We can't see that. And it was important that we get that tender moment, right?
Yeah.
And so then we talked a little bit about, touching the shoulder. It wasn't quite as intimate. Anyway, so
Mhm.
he came up with that, and I just thought it was the cutest.
Yeah.
So that's how that was born. It was just born because we were too tight for what he had planned, and so then it was like it has to be above the shoulders. So how do we do this anyway? But yeah, it's super cute. I love that little
Yeah.
moment, actually. Yeah.
Well, and a few of us even said, it was a new little thing for them. And it's always fun to see, even through season 12, these little bitty new things that they do, but they still hold, the be safe was still there. Um, but it's interesting just to kind of watch how they played that out. Some fans said, well, maybe a kiss would have seemed a little bit more urgent, like I better kiss you because this is really serious, that kind of a thing. So I
Hmm.
think it played really well.
Yeah,
And
because I'm
Elizabeth,
not sure that he felt like we're building the danger, but at that point, he didn't feel like
yeah,
he was going into danger,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was neat that Elizabeth turned and immediately saw the sign about Sonny Garrison being out, that kind of let her know what might be really happening.
Right. And that was planned too, because I was trying to figure out where would this poster be. And I thought, well, I think it would be, with the on that notice board. And so that's why we had them land there, and because that's where that would be. Because it's important that she
Yeah,
sees that.
yeah.
Yeah, and it gives us a clue as to what is gonna be happening.
So you mentioned that you love shooting in the stable, and we had a great moment. Lucas has really leaned on Henry a lot in season 12. And we had a great moment where Henry was working in the stable, and Lucas came to catch him up on what was going on with McGinty. First of all, you did a camera angle that I haven't really seen a whole lot before. And I've been in that stable, and I was it shot from like even the other part of it in.
Yes, correct. It was shot from the
Can you
from
talk
from
about
the
that
building.
and also why you chose to shoot in the stable?
Sure. So, well, first of all, I'll say why I chose. Originally, it was scripted to be in the orchard.
Okay.
But I love shooting in the stable, and the orchard there were quite a few scenes in the orchard. And so I was like, well, you know, for me, because, I come in like and do a scene, do a block every season. So even though I watched the whole season, obviously I'm more wedded to my own episodes. And I do remember that working in the stable was really one of the roots of Henry's starting his journey. And so I decided that I didn't really want them in a cafe or whatever. So they were in the orchard, but there were quite a few scenes there. And also it was really wet. So by October, it is really wet. So how many walk and talks can you really do in there?
Yeah.
Anyway, so then I thought, well, I think they should be in the stable because it's
Yeah.
still the new roots of Henry, but it's and it's in one of my favorite places to shoot. And then that shot, I love a frame in a frame because it kind of gives you a geography, like it gives you geography in a kind of an interesting way. And there is sometimes there isn't a frame, but there's just that natural frame there. So yeah, we shot it from the back stables.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got my frame in a frame, which I love to do.
Yeah.
So
It was a neat shot. It really was. And it was neat to hear the two of them talking in that space.
mhm.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. And we have to take down, it's funny, every time we do that, the stalls are actually much higher. So we have to take the boards down so that they can talk to each other.
Got it.
Um, so yeah.
Cool. So one of my favorite moments of the season, and I guess storylines, would have been Angela's storyline. And so you got to direct the episode where they actually go to the Schwartzman School. And I know that you've shared that there was a lot of effort and time and attention to going into making that moment special. So can you share about some of the things that you really wanted to focus in on to make this extra special, and even some of the things that you learned in the process of preparing for it?
Oh yeah, I learned so much. It was really important to me that the actors were visually impaired or blind, and because that we knew that the background performers, we knew we could find background performers, but I really wanted this speaking roles to also be visually impaired or blind, and production really was behind it, and then the casting directors really knocked it out of the park. I mean, really, they deserve a huge amount of credit because they went out and found a bunch of people, for starters, to make
Wow.
I was like blown away by the commitment. And yeah, we were super determined and very lucky because the young woman who plays Clementine actually has a degree in theater. So it's not like, even though she hasn't worked in television before, she's done acting classes. And yeah, she was absolutely wonderful, amazing. She just lit up the room any room she walked into, she just lights up the room. Um, and then there were 8 blind people, or most of them were blind, some of them were visually impaired, but there were 8 people on set all day. And so we did things like transport went and picked them up, all 8 of them, so that it was easy for them to get to work.
Yeah.
And like every department did something. And then we found a green room close to the set. And then the cast were amazing. Like they were super interested and supportive of the whole process. And they, like, especially Vienna, because Vienna plays a blind character.
Yeah.
And so she really took a lot of responsibility to make sure that that the actors felt comfortable and knew what was going on. And I think that was the main thing for me as a director, was to make sure, first of all, to let them take the lead. So when Keisha showed up, I'm like, how do you want to do this? And she said, well, I want you to take me around the room so I can see it. I'm like, okay. So then we walked around the room so she could get the map of it. And then we talked about the scene. And then I was super respectful to not grab her or anything. Like, can you hold on to me? And then I would say, well, I would like you to start here and then here. And we tried to figure out how she could hit her mark. And then at one point it was funny because I said, okay, so now we've done that. And you probably know there's about 25 people watching us. She said, yeah, I can hear little movement.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I said, okay, well, those people are now going to set up the lights and we're going to set up all the shots. So you're going to go back to the green room. But it was really like interesting, the things that we just take for granted.
Yeah.
But of course, there's a huge crowd of people watching.
Yeah.
And I had not said anything until, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I should say something. So yeah, it was really, the whole process was really moving. They were amazing. They were like so full of life and so like, and they all know each other. So there's no, they're all chatting away. And then some of them brought their dogs, which was fantastic because the crew love animals on set. So
Yeah.
that was super fun as well. So the whole thing was amazing and a huge learning experience about how we can accommodate, people who are differently abled in our industry, even at an accommodation for something you would think actually could not be accommodated because sets are not safe, like the stuff all over the place. But
Mm-hmm.
it can be done. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was really proud of everybody involved. And it was my last day of shooting actually. And it was a really moving way to finish
Oh, yeah.
the block. Yeah.
Wow, I would say so. Well, for being so technical and having so many things to, plan for, it translated so nice in that, we're wanting Angela to be able to go to a place that's warm and inviting. And as technical as all of that was, it felt that way on this side of it. So it was definitely a highlight of the season.
That's
So,
great. Thank you
yeah.
very much for mentioning that. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was certainly a highlight for me too.
Yeah, I bet. So Edie and Lucas have a little bit of a conversation in the saloon. And I think it may have been, if not the first time, and maybe it was the only time this season where somebody else kind of catches that maybe there might be a little something going on. And so Lee observes a little bit of a conversation between Edie and Lucas. Was it written that way? Can you talk about where you put Lee to kind of make that moment happen?
I mean, it was written that he saw them, but I opted to put him back around behind the bar, which is a natural place for him to be. And then he also could watch a lot of the conversation, and he's just in the background most of the time, a little bit out of focus. And then we just throw the focus back to him so we see him. So I wanted to do it in a little bit more of a gentle, elegant way than, him
Uh-huh.
standing over by a table watching. But I just wanted to give them their privacy,
Uh-huh.
but let him see what was happening. So yeah, that's why I chose it to do it like that.
It was fun that it was him, given that, he and Lucas are such good friends and they had had this like bro flick of sorts earlier in the season. And now he's getting to see his friend have a conversation with, oh, there's a potential conversation going on here that I need to kind of tune into. So it was played really well. So
Thanks. Yeah.
I loved that we returned to the balcony this season. And so we've got Elizabeth and Rosemary trying to sneak up on Ava and all of those antics. What inspired the decision for you to go back to the balcony, and how did you bring all of that scene together?
Well, first of all, I love the balcony too. I think I shot a huge scene between Lucas and Elizabeth, I think in season 9, when he was throwing a surprise party for her
Oh,
and
yeah.
she's watching the stars. So I really love it up there. I
Yeah.
love the fact that you can see the whole town.
Yeah.
But it was actually scripted to be up there because I think the idea is that the hotel rooms are upstairs.
Hmm.
But as usual, the amazing art department really knocked it out of the park because there's no windows that open.
Wow.
Um, so they
There
had
you
to
go.
make that happen. There's like it's just like an attic really. So yeah, they had to make that, and then they put drapes on all the windows so that it looked like they were hotel rooms.
Yeah.
And then I really wanted to use that corner because I really wanted them to come around the corner and then have somewhere to hide, and then
Uh-huh.
for the two women to be talking while Ava is throwing the trunk over the balcony. So that it just worked really well to have it like that so that they were right there, but they didn't know
Hmm.
what she was doing. And
Yeah.
then it was super fun, even the, dropping of the trunk, because
Yeah.
I think it was scripted that it was dropped in it was scripted that it was dropped in a hazelnut, what is it called? Uh, I'm sorry. The
The
word is,
cart, it was
yeah, the cart.
the
But
cart
then
where
it
they
was like the
sell all of
hazelnut
them.
cart. But I was like, okay, I think that would crush
That'd
the,
probably break the cart.
yeah, yeah. So then we came up with the idea of it being a delivery, like horse and cart and deliver, like it's
Mm,
deliveries. But then we had to, so we had the horses there when we were shooting up to her, but
hmm.
then when we dropped the case, we had to disengage the horses so that they wouldn't freak out. So, it was sort of like, but it worked really well. I loved watching her throw it over, um, and no horses got spooked, so that was great.
That's always a bonus.
It's always a bonus, yeah, but it was super fun. At first, we were trying to do it with special effects, like have it on a kind of a string, so that on a rope, so that, and then but it wasn't really working. And finally, I said to Tiara, "Can you just throw this over?" She's like, "Oh yeah," she just picked it up. I'm like, "Okay, I think we were trying to solve a problem in a
Yeah.
more complicated way than we needed."
Yeah. She's like, "Yeah, I got it."
Yeah, no problem.
Well, it was a lot of fun. It's always fun. Like I love that Elizabeth and Rosemary can be so serious in there for each other, but Aaron and Pascal do comedy so well. And
So
so
well.
it was so fun to see them back at it and Rosemary pulling Elizabeth into another one of her mischievous
Yes.
moments. So
Yes.
a lot
Oh,
of
yes.
fun. So episode 9 also brought us some Mountie action, which was a lot of fun. And we're in the woods with the Garrison gang. Can you talk about, I imagine that was another very intricate shooting moment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. That was a lot of planning. So first of all, the first thing we had to do is find all the locations, and it was wet. Oh my gosh. I would go out and location scout, and then I would go home and I'd be like, well, I don't think that's really quite right. And then I would go back out. And at one point, during the pouring rain, I walked around the entire piece of land, which is pretty
Wow.
big,
Which is huge.
trying, yeah, trying to find where to put these. The two scenes. The one was with when they're digging up the treasure, or not
Mhm.
treasure, and the big stunt sequence. And then the other one was the split in the road, and the split in the road was complicated because they were the horse wranglers, like, if there's rain, we're going to get washed out. So then I had to find a plan B that wouldn't get washed out. Anyway, we were good. We got to do it there because I thought that was a really awesome
Yeah.
place to do it. And so that was the first thing. But we had to have stunt riders for all of those scenes in case, because they can all ride,
Yeah.
but in case it was wet and muddy and slippy, because we obviously don't want to hurt our actors. And then the second one, yeah, a lot of planning went into that because of this, horses, stunts, actors, like there's a lot going on there. And so a lot of planning. I went out with the camera, with the stunt coordinator and the horse wrangler several times as we worked out where we were gonna put it and how we were gonna do, especially when Nathan rides through, because we had to get Sonny Garrison away from the hole in order to leave enough space for the horse to come through. Now, we had filled in the hole by then, but still the conceit is there's a hole there. So you
Yeah.
still need to, play it as if there's a hole there. So the horse is always safe, but so yeah, so there was quite a lot of planning involved in that. And but it all worked great. And I think the cast had fun. Like Jacob, I think, loved it. And he was so fun. We shot the split in the road first,
Uh-huh.
and then and I said to him, you can protect her, like you can protect Allie, and he really grew into that, and it gave him another angle for his characters, like because they had always been playing friends and all of
Mhm.
that. But
Mhm.
in this moment, you can protect her. So it
Mhm.
gave them a place to just do a little jump in their relationship, where he feels protective over her. And so that was really when I saw his little eyes light up, and he really, oh, okay, this was something. I don't know if he has sisters or girlfriend or whatever, but he really, really liked the fact that he could protect Allie. And so that was sort of when I saw some big growth there, actually.
Mm.
Yeah. And then, of course, when he had to do the shovel, I'm like, you okay doing this? Because we always have to check with the actors because sometimes they're not,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I'm good. Okay.
Well, I got to visit with him after episode 10 aired, and I asked him, what was your favorite scene to film of the season? And that was it. So it was definitely a highlight for him. So
That's great. Yeah.
hopefully he'll get more Mountie action in the future. So he
Yes, I
enjoyed
hope
it.
so. I hope he gets to ride too, because I don't think, did he ride at all
No,
this
he
season? No.
didn't.
So hopefully he will get to ride because that is such a big part of the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm hoping for him for next season.
Wouldn't it be great if he didn't know how to ride, if Oliver didn't, and somebody's got to teach him how to
Someone's
ride?
got to,
Let's put in our wish. Let's get our
there we
wish over to
go.
the writers, right?
That's a good story idea.
Come on. So while that's going on in the woods, we've got Elizabeth and Molly and Henry and Mike, and they're starting to piece everything together in the saloon. So, how do you direct a moment where, at first there's a little bit of humor going on, and Elizabeth is kind of, picking up on the antics between Mike and Molly? But as they start to piece everything together, it becomes a pretty serious realization that this is a big deal. So, how do you kind of balance a scene like that where you've got the comedy, but then you have to shift over to that more serious moment?
Yeah, I mean, it is about balancing the tones. And so like, I mean, it's a lovely scene to start comedic and then kind of like dive into the drama.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have them moving around a lot because I felt there was a lot going on already. So if they'd been like moving around, then we might have missed some of the nuance. So that's
Hmm.
why I parked them at the bar. And so I think that, and then a lot of it is just the actors. I mean, Erin's so amazing. Like
Yeah.
she's the one who had to like, you know, take it from comedy to serious, and she's amazing. So, just sometimes, often with really good actors, I just basically try and get out of the way.
Yeah. Let them do their thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Especially
yeah,
when, she's so invested and brings ideas all of the time that,
yeah,
it's she's going to deliver.
yeah, totally. Yeah. And
So,
she did.
yeah, and she did. They all did. I mean, even loved the drone. Um,
Oh,
Ah, the cinematography this season, but just that choice of the drone to show above and the horses splitting was
oh yeah, I love that. I really wanted that because it was the most like visual way of telling the story, that they were going fast, and they were splitting up. I
yeah,
mean, I wish we'd had three places for them to split up, but whatever, it worked.
it
We
worked.
got the idea.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really fun to do that scene, and I did a little bit of slow-mo because I
Uh-huh.
find often with action it goes so fast that sometimes we just have to slow it down a tiny bit so we can really follow it, and you can
Mhm.
always speed it up, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, but we kept it, so I think it really works to show what's happening, and you can kind of get into the action when it's not going too fast.
Mhm. Yeah, it was really awesome to watch and see that. So after that scene and the Garrison guys are put away, we have a moment, and of course, Hardy's love callbacks. And so, was it a callback when Nathan and Bill came out of the? I guess let's see, they came out of the Mountie
Yeah,
area,
out of the
correct?
jail. Yeah, yeah.
But we have Allie that runs up and gives Nathan a hug. Was that a callback to season 8 when she did the same thing after Nathan was off the hook?
I think so. And I know the apple juice for sure was like
Yeah.
those are, the writers and the actors especially um, are very good at making sure that those callbacks happen. And
Mhm.
if there's an opportunity for one, they will call the showrunner and talk to them and ask for that for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, those were both in there, and I remember shooting. I'm trying to remember. I remember shooting a hug, Allie hugging Nathan when he was held hostage. So yeah, I do remember that. I don't know maybe that was season 10. I think it might have been season 10.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, when he was held hostage, and then and Allie's so relieved to see him, gives him a big hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that one. I know that there was the one when Hargraves is trying to put him away in season 8. And that was definitely I'm like, this seems very much, and
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. I love that the actors, the crew, the cast, the writers, they just know that those moments it's gonna get us
Yes.
talking, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we dream up ones that aren't really reality, but it's fun to play.
That's great.
It's
Yeah.
fun to play. So when the group enters the saloon, and again, we try to find these little bitty moments of growth between Nathan and Elizabeth this season. And one of them that I thought was interesting was when Rosemary sees that everybody is okay and Elizabeth and Nathan are approaching, instead of just giving her best friend a hug, she actually does like this double hug at the same time with Elizabeth and Nathan. So was that something that you guys talked about and how that would play out?
That's just something she did, and I loved it, so we
Oh
kept
yeah.
it. But yeah, that's just something that she did. I think the character was so relieved that everyone came home safe that's why she did that. But yeah, it really worked for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It was another little like, oh, Rosemary's welcoming him in now. So it
Right.
was good. Well played, whoever
Well
came up with that
played.
one. So, one of my favorite lines from that episode was actually when Lucas asked Edie, but we'll still be friends. And that was in the cafe when they're waiting to have dinner and nobody's there. And they're trying to work through that whole situation. And his biggest concern is no matter what happens, you and I are still going to be friends. It was a really neat little line. So, can you talk about that scene in the cafe? Because it was packed with the comedy from Mike and May coming in and realizing they're supposed to be there, but then that serious conversation that's happening with Lucas and Edie there at the table.
Yeah, that was a super tricky scene. And also, I think that Ben had been the one who pitched for them. He talked to the writers about them coming in and that, they'd forgotten. I can't quite remember if they had always been coming in, but they certainly had not had a big like he was the one that pitched that they should have forgotten a lot. So it was quite a serious scene.
Yeah.
And then when the rewrites came out, there was all of this comedy, which I mean, he was completely correct that it should be there. But it is tricky but fun to do like a scene with comedy, drama, and romance. And
Hmm.
how do make all of those elements work? And
Yeah.
that's, I guess, really my main job is to make sure that we're all on the same train. Um, and so for that one, I chose to shoot it from what I would call the inside. So I shot it from basically the wall
Okay.
so that Edie and Lucas were always in the foreground, so that we knew that the scene was their scene, and that Ben and May came in and they did all their shtick and it was great and fun, but that we always knew that we didn't throw the scene to them. We
Yeah.
stayed with in the master. We stayed with Edie and Lucas, so that we were clear about whose scene it was, and
Hmm.
then so I think that worked pretty well actually because it gave Ben and Amanda space to be able to really play the comedy, but we stayed grounded
Mhm.
with the main characters of that scene.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it worked really. I'm quite pleased with that scene. I think and it's been mentioned a few times, so I think that we must have succeeded.
Yeah. Yeah. It was good. It was, there was you nailed it on the romance and the comedy and the serious moment. And even bringing it back at the end with a little bit of comedy at the end and the chicken chicken legs,
Yeah.
it was good.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of discussion about especially the stuff because the more stuff they brought, Ben and May brought, or Mike Hickam and May brought, the longer they were standing there. So
Mhm.
that is quite a lot of shoe leather of just watching, so
Yeah.
then we had to pare it back to the really the minimum amount of stuff. And so that's why we opted to just put the food down, assuming they'd come back, I guess, with drinks, but they needed something to do this cheers thing. And then so the chicken was the thing, which is cute.
It was cute. Yeah, it was good. And I think it kind of even in a way, um, for us, it was like, oh, well, maybe this is how this relationship's going to be, kind of give us a
Hmm.
little bit of foreshadowing.
Right. Yeah, because she's
Potentially.
super cute, isn't she? I just
Yeah.
love her. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
excited to have her back in season 13. So that's awesome. Okay, episode 10. This is the first time that we get to see Nathan and Lucas together in season 12. And I love that you kind of did, I'll call it the, tombstone kind of thing where they kind of walk into the shot. Can you talk about that directing choice? Love the line where, one of them says it's not worth it, and the other one says it's still not worth it. It just, the vibe of the two of them played so well together. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I really love that scene. I mean, Kevin McNulty, who plays McGinty, is amazing. So then I have three amazing
Yeah.
actors. And I think one of the things that it was always supposed to be in, I think it was originally supposed to be at a gate. No, no, I don't think so. It was always supposed to be on his property. But I think what I wanted to do was, we are like in the West in the early 1900s. So, it's still a little bit cowboy time, or a
Yeah.
lot actually.
Yeah.
And so I felt that this was a good time to just restate that, that we are in the Midwest, or in the West actually,
Yeah.
in 1921. So, and it is, a time like it was a time of like the good, certainly TV land and movie land, the good guys and the bad guys, a little bit lawless, a little bit of lawlessness.
Mm.
And so that's why I think it worked so well to put it in the big wide. And we were so lucky because the sun was setting, like it was just in the right place. So it looked super beautiful. But yeah, to put it in a big wide, so it's like it's all about the land. Also, the scene is all about the land. So,
That's true. Yeah.
like to bring it back to a little bit its Western roots and the pioneer roots, and then also to show what it was about, which is about the land. Yeah. So, and then they just kind of like, I think they really enjoyed working on that scene because it was, like a little bit manly, and that's kind of fun to do. um for so yeah, and they all rode their own horses, and so yeah, it was kind of a fun scene, and it was nice to see the two men kind of be kind of brothers.
Hmm.
That was super nice, so I was glad I got to do that too.
I chatted with Kevin McGarry about that scene, and he made a little true or false. You can tell me that at the end of it, that there might have been a little bit of spitting out the side of the mouth. And did that really happen? He's like,
You know
yeah,
what really did happen is it was scripted that McGinty should spit.
yes,
And so he did every time. He was amazing. He was
he
like a
was
real cowboy.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, real cowboy. But I think it didn't make it into the cut. But yeah, he did do it for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
He said that they kind of played along with it and did their own kind of little just a but anyway. He said in a not when calls the heart moment, it probably would have been chewing tobacco and all of that, but on when calls the heart, we're just gonna spit. So
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, they were just being manly. Like,
Absolutely. So Nathan kind of loses his cool in that moment, but he also loses his cool back home when Allie is there, and Allie's really starting to realize, what she's done. And we don't see Nathan get this angry very often, but we see him slamming the chair down, which causes quite a disruption. So, what went into the decision to show that level of frustration? And that was he just thinking about even the way he had responded back with McGinty? We're trying to piece all of that together.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think a lot of it comes from fear. Like, first of all, he did slam the chair, but it was just a little slam. So I felt that it was like like it the emotion was bigger than what he did. So he
Yeah.
was really holding himself together. But I think that a lot of the frustration is fear, and it's fear. He's got a little girl who's growing up, who's
Mhm.
getting into trouble. He can't protect her. And so I don't really think, even though she thought he was mad at her, I don't really think he was mad at her. He was scared for her,
Yeah.
as a parent is, as children grow up, and you can help them less and less, and you just, like, and then she's getting into trouble with a really bad guy.
Hmm.
And going onto other people's land, like, so for me, that's how I interpreted it, is that
Yeah.
it wasn't really that he was angry at her. He's more afraid. And he is, like, it is scary to watch your children grow up. I mean, I
Hmm.
have two daughters. I
Hmm.
totally get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of how that storyline between the two of them have played out all season is Allie's growing up, and so there's some things that he just can't control like he used to be able to control.
Yeah.
So Allie is also, pretty distraught in that moment. I know, Allie has always had a little bit of that, mischievousness playing on the edge. She's growing up. In that moment, she seems really concerned that she's done the wrong thing by going onto the land. Um, and even probably, I would say, more so than I mean, she's more so than I would have expected Allie to be. She's really taking that moment seriously. So, what do you think is weighing on her in that moment?
I think that she too is a little bit afraid, because, she did something that, without thinking, which is, the consequences are larger when you're older.
Yeah.
And then also, I think she's afraid for Ollie, because, like, because she's sort of going to get him into trouble. And she's
Mhm.
not used to disappointing people, because she is a little bit of a perfectionist kind of
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
So I think there's several things going on there. She's not used to making the wrong choices. She's normally makes the right choices. So I think that it is, her also is about growing up, and
Mhm.
having to deal with the consequences of your actions. And
Yeah.
what seemed like a great idea at the time
Mhm.
is sometimes not. So
That's
I think that's what's really weighing on her.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's the stakes are higher now as you get older, and what you used to get away with, maybe you need to be. Yeah, that's good. That's great. Rosemary, in this episode, is trying to, do more of her solving things. And so she has a moment in the cafe with Hickam where she's trying to get information from him, but it's an opportunity for Mike to have a little bit of a moment with his hallelujah. So I'm just curious, how many takes did it take to get through that moment?
Oh my gosh, that was so hilarious, because some of that was ad-libbed.
I
I'm
bet.
pretty like, the singing was not in the script. And then he's got such a good voice. And then Viv comes in, and he has such a good voice, and they would have sang the whole song.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, and I literally had to keep cut, cut, cut. Like, I would
Yeah.
try and wait for, like, a moment, but sometimes there was no moment. I'd just be like shouting cut through the song. Yeah, it was so great, so funny. And it was even the choice of the song, I thought,
Mhm.
was really awesome, because it's very Hope Valley.
Yeah.
And and then Mike did such a great job of singing it. So yeah, it was super fun, but it was so funny. I was like laughing so
Oh
hard
yeah.
in the back. Yeah.
It's
Well,
so
my
good to
little
have those moments where you can have such a serious storyline going on that we just, talked about even with Nathan and Allie and all of that. And then, just that balance of, okay, now we need to bring in just a little bit of humor just to kind of keep it balanced. So it played out really well.
Yeah, yeah, he's awesome. I mean, there's so many of the smaller characters are awesome in Hope Valley,
Oh
and they
yeah.
really each really adds so much. Even if they only have one scene or in an episode, it's just it adds so much production value to have those characters
Hmm.
that they're regular characters that we know and we get to know, and they have their own stories, even if sometimes they're very small stories. I think it
Mm,
really adds a lot to Hope Valley.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. We had in this episode that moment where McGinty finally gets what's coming to him. And I loved how it played out where Henry is there in the judge's office, ready to make sure that he gets everything, that everybody gets off that's supposed to get off, the way that Bill delivered it, and then that Lee kind of swept in at the end to kind of close the deal. Can you talk about that scene?
Yeah, of course, that was a great scene to do. And I think I wanted to it's super satisfying when the good guy gets the bad guy, but I wanted it to be them all to be standing in the middle of the room. I didn't want Bill sitting behind his desk or any kind of like any of that. I didn't want him to be the judge. I wanted him to be like toe to toe with McGinty and beat him like man to man as opposed to judge to, so that's why I had him in front of the desk and everybody standing for the whole thing, because then it was really a kind of a battle of wits as opposed to of status.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that was, and then just having like, yeah, it was great. Just Lee just comes in and then goes out, like he just, everyone trusted the process. And then, of course, Jack's so amazing. So
Oh,
he,
yeah.
yeah, he just like really knows how to dig into those scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun to see each of them in their own, like the gift that they bring to Hope Valley, all coming together
Yeah.
just to take the bad guy out. So,
Yeah. And even Henry sitting, like he was just perched,
yeah.
so he wasn't involved. He wasn't sitting down. He
Mhm.
wasn't like, he was just
Mhm.
perched. He's just there, a little guardian angel.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And not riled or anything. He's like, I know what I'm here for. This is what we're gonna do. Just him being his Henry was really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good scene. Every time every scene is great for starters. And then something like that it's nice to wrap up a story like that, and how to do it justice because it's been playing for a while. So how
Yeah.
do I, through many people's episodes, so how do I do it justice to wrap
Yeah.
it up?
Yeah. It was a great little bow on the whole
Yeah.
storyline. So
Yeah.
you also got to do the first ever Hazelnut Harvest Festival. What's it like when you have to shoot a scene with that many from Hope Valley in a space like that? I imagine there's a lot of coordinating that has to go into something like that.
That you're right. There's a huge amount of coordinating. And so it adds again, it's a lot of production value to have everybody there. Not everyone has lines, so that is, but they all need to be seen on camera, or else there's no point of them being there. But yeah, I love doing those scenes. I've done quite a lot of them. And in this case, the writers had written them sitting down. And so it probably would have been easier to have them standing, but I really wanted to do the big long table, to do the harvest festival. I didn't want to do buffet style. Like we talked about a lot of things. I'm like, no, the writers want it sitting down, and that's what we're going to do. So then we had to figure out how to find, build a table and all that. And then the important thing in something like this is the first planning. So that's the first planning. And then the next one is, where is everybody? And in this case, the central figure really is Allie. So I'm like, okay, Allie has to be next to Nathan, and then she has to be next to Bill because she has to hug Bill.
Yeah.
And then she has to be across the table from Oliver because they have to have a moment. And then where's Elizabeth? Because technically she would be next to Nathan, but if she's next to Nathan, she's too far away from the action. So let's put her across from Nathan so that she's involved in the action. Anyway, so a lot of that kind of stuff is, I think about a lot of that so that to make sure that everyone is next to the person they need to be next to or is in the vicinity. And then I also, I knew that I wanted Georgie I wanted Bill to see Georgie at the other end of the table. So that meant that Rosemary had to be down at the other end of the table. So yeah, so that's the kind of like the very first thing of trying to figure out who is sitting where. And it's super fun. It's like one of the really fun puzzles of directing actually is just because you can easily get someone in the wrong place. So, and there's obviously 100 ways to do it. That's just how I like to do it because, I don't know. That's how I like to solve the puzzle. Other people would have had them standing up and walking around to each other. But for me, I really wanted them all sitting down because I wanted to really show this the dinner part of the Harvest Festival.
Yeah, it was really neat. And having Allie across from Oliver when she whispers across the thank you, and he picks up on that, was well played with him being across the table. I got to visit earlier in the season with Martin Wood, who really coached Jada and Jacob on, here is where Allie and Oliver are in their relationship. They are friends. This is kind of how we play this out. A lot of the not yet. And so in that moment, was there any conversation about like, this is just how you're going to respond? This is where they are, or did they just know what to do?
Oh, I think they pretty much knew what to do. I think we shot that early on in the block. And so it was really about making sure that because Jada had a lot to do, but he didn't really have a lot to do. So it was really about making sure that his energy stayed up and he stayed in the scene so that he earned the the little moment. So that was really because it's hard to be on camera with nothing to do. Like it takes quite a lot of practice and training and and like you learn how to do that, but it doesn't come naturally to just like, oh, I'm on camera, so I must. Every now and again someone comes along who's brilliant at it, but most people have to learn it. So that was really the main thing for them was to make sure that he stayed engaged and was so that we went back to him. Whenever we went back to him, he was engaged and doing something. And so that was the main thing that we didn't really talk about their relationship because it seemed pretty solid to me. And, I don't think there's anything beyond maybe a special friendship. And that I think is a good place. That was a good place for them to end episode 10.
Yeah, I agree. And he got to be in on episode 11, that sounding board for her and what she was going through and kind of be there for her. So that was a sweet moment as well to kind of build upon.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned Rosemary and Georgie. They're at the other end of the table. And it's an opportunity for them to kind of find a common ground for Rosemary to hear, that Bill had been, backing Rosemary, speaking highly of her. So can you talk about that moment as a director to kind of work, first of all, with Melissa Gilbert, having her on as Georgie, but just that moment of Rosemary and Georgie finding that common ground?
Yeah, it was such an honor to work with her. I was really thrilled that I got to direct her. I mean, she's like super easy to direct because she's like so brilliant, and yeah, it was funny because we had Ellie there, and so that that kind of helped a lot actually because then Ellie always commands a little bit of attention, and it just sort of like gave Rosemary, she could say, "Oh, this is my daughter or my husband," and it just kind of helped them ease into the conversation in a kind of organic kind of way.
Yeah.
Um, and it was nice to see two women supporting each other and being kind of impressed with each other's work outside of the home, like that, that they were. I thought that was important to show, especially because Georgie is, unmarried, and her work is clearly her life. So it was important to show that, and then her generosity back to Rosemary and respect for. So that was really what it was about for me, was these two women, both of whom are powerhouses, and expressing their respect for each other's
Mhm.
careers and work. I thought that was what I loved about that scene.
Mhm. We saw a few little soft moments from Georgie, even though she was very professional and doing her job. But even her connecting with little Goldie in that way that she did, it brought an extra layer of just that kind, warm person that Georgie, that she is as well. So I think that connection was really neat to see. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So you've mentioned that you like to work with young actors. By the time we get to episode 10, we've got to see some pretty amazing growth from Highland, who plays Little Jack. And in episode 10, we've got a few moments where we really get to see the dramatic side and what Highland is capable of, like the scene at the table when he's not wanting to hurt Nathan's feelings because he wants to play baseball instead of riding the horse. And then that intense moment with when Nathan finds him in the woods, and even how he just sat in that moment and played out the seriousness of the illness in the infirmary. Can you talk a little bit about working with Highland through those moments?
Yeah, so oh my gosh, he's brilliant. I mean, he just gets better and better every season. Um, and he comes super prepared. He knows all his lines, and I mean, he's just a little genius.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just about keeping it interesting. It's about how many times do we want to do a scene with him,
Hmm.
and explaining what the scene is. And the other actors are amazing with him, like Aaron's amazing, and so yeah, he's really something.
Even in the moment in the infirmary, makeup and the way that he looked sick.
Yeah, good.
I mean, he played it so well. I'm sitting there watching him and I'm like, I just stared at him because I thought, he really is playing this so well. And then even what we got to see in episode 11, I was like, wow, Highland, like this is amazing what you have done.
Yeah, it is really amazing. I mean, yes, we did have makeup on him, but he does. What's so funny is he'll do that, like lying on the bed, like sitting in the bed, close to his mom, like that,
Yeah.
and then he'll be doing his acting, and then I'll call cut, and he'll just jump off the
Oh,
bed.
goodness. And I've heard
Okay.
he's got a lot of energy, so it's crazy that he can just like on a dime.
Yeah, a lot of energy. Yeah, yeah, a lot of energy. But yeah, he really loves it. He loves being on set, so that helps. Like, I think he really likes to come to work to work. I think maybe last year was a little bit hard because he just started school, so he kept.
Mhm.
But this year he kind of was a little bit. He found it. He kind of found his rhythm with going to
Mhm.
school and coming to work and stuff. So,
Mhm.
so that was great to see. Yeah. But he just is a natural. I mean,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, he's just I mean, I remember Peter DeLuise said that when he found him, he was like, "Oh my God, this guy's a natural," and he was right.
Yeah. It's going to be fun to see even in season 13, you know.
Yeah, what's going to happen? He just
Yeah.
keep growing and growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I visited with Elise Late Rogers early when she was talking about her block that she directed. And she said she was talking about the scene where they decided to have Nathan and Elizabeth bareback on a horse, riding side saddle,
Oh,
and which was
what a scene!
it made the intro, right?
Oh, yeah,
But she said that the reason why she went for it is because she's worked with them long enough to know that there are certain risks or ideas that she can throw out because she knows what they're capable of. Now that you've been on When Calls the Heart for 5 seasons, is that true for you too? When you're thinking about, what can I push the envelope? Can I try this because I know what these actors and even the crew are capable of?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like I think that like all of the action stuff, I the actors, even though we had stunt riders, the actors all were able to do their own riding, which is really amazing if you think about it, you know. And it adds a lot to because a lot of people, a lot of actors cannot do that.
Mhm.
And then also the comedy to serious that we talked about earlier, like those scenes are super complicated. And I think that if I didn't know them as well, I might split them up a little bit but I know they can I know that they can pull those off.
Yeah.
And then I always, I lean on people, like I lean on Ben Rosenbaum because I know he's going to bring comedy. Like there's a little bit of comedy. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to bring a lot of comedy.
Hmm.
So, so I lean on the actors and I'm always open to what they bring because, um, I think they're so special and they know their characters better than anybody. They really are the guardians of their characters and they love the show. They're such an amazing bunch of people. Like for a cast to come to work for season 12 and they all are having a fun and love being there and like each other. I mean, that's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so mostly what I do is I tend to just stay open to what they have to offer, because they do know a lot and they've been around a lot, and I value their contributions.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I do, and I obviously have a sense of what people, are gonna do or bring, but they always surprise me, which is really special.
Yeah. Kevin shared that in that Mountie scene that was the first time he really felt like after all of these seasons that he mastered Newton. So
Oh yeah, that was yeah. There was so much writing. When I first read it, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I feel like I'm making 1923 here."
uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah,
like
it's great.
there's a lot, and they were all super game
Yeah.
to do to do the writing, and it makes it so we would do like some with the stunt double, and then they would all do their own. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It worked out really well. Elise, speaking of, she also shared that she found a lot of inspiration from old movies. Like I shouldn't say old because then it would make me look old, right?
No,
Old movies like Legends of the Fall, Footloose, Dirty Dancing, and even Gilligan's Island. So, where did you pull some of your inspiration from this season?
well, it probably won't surprise you to know that I did watch a lot of westerns.
Yes.
I watched like things like Billy the Kid
Yeah.
and yeah, 1923 because I wanted to see the horses. Like Billy the Kid was great for horses because they're like, and I wanted to see how they shot the horses, how, yeah. And so that was really, I watched a lot of that. And then Outlanders is I think a great inspiration for this show. So that's another one. And then Virgin River, tonally, I think is
Yeah.
a good one. And then of course I had to watch Little House on the Prairie
Well, of
because,
course.
I was going to work with Melissa Gilbert. So I mean, I already watched it when I was little, but I had to watch it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I don't watch movies. I watch a lot of different shows, and then I'll
Mhm.
just pull from my, you know, like, and specifically on this block, it was all about the
Mhm.
Western. So yeah, and I think it shows in
Oh,
like
yeah.
not only the action, but even as you say, when with the three men meeting and the tombstone reference,
Hmm.
like it's just, yeah. I really, I like that about that episode actually was that it did kind of, oh yeah, we're not in a small town in like a safe place. Actually, we're in a small town in, well, the middle of nowhere, and
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, and so it is a bit more rough and tumble than we see often. So I really liked that about nine, was it just, it had a bit of an edge to it, and it's a reminder that, you know, like they're pioneers.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And you know, their life is hard. Like the all of the love and support for each other comes partly because they live in a bit of a harsh environment.
Hmm.
And so they need each other, and they, you know, and that's part of what the show is all about
Hmm.
for
Well,
me.
and we've heard multiple times this season that even though we're moving into the 1920s, we're in Hope Valley still. And so we might get little moments like our Gatsby moments and things, but we are still in Hope Valley, and it's, definitely not the big city. So it's always so fun to hear. You guys do so much prep with the directing, how much research that you put into it is so amazing to hear about. And then to see that play out on our screens. So it's really fun to see how you guys spend so much time researching to prepare for that. So
Well, I
looking.
love it when I watch other directors episodes as well, because you know, even though it's all one show, and of course it's all about Hope Valley, and there's tonally it's very similar, but you can, you know, you can see those influences from other
Mhm.
directors, and I think it's like adds a lot. So
Yeah.
I always like to see what other directors and hear what other
Mhm.
directors are doing.
Did you see the Dirty Dancing moment?
Yes.
I think we
Yeah.
all picked up on that one. It was kind of always fun when we're like, that feels like Dirty Dancing. And then, somebody confirms that, yes, that's exactly what I was trying to do. So,
Yeah. We steal from each other all the time. I remember there was this one director that I kept watching shows, and his name kept coming up, and finally I thought, well, I'm just going to have to reach out to this guy, and so I did. I reached out to a complete stranger, British director, and I
uh-huh.
said, I just want to tell you I think your work is great, and I steal your shots all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he
Listen,
was
I'm in
like, that's okay.
education. That's what teachers do too, right?
Oh,
We can't start from zero. We got to work, we got to have our inspirational moments as well too. So,
fair enough. Yeah.
looking back over the two episodes that you did, was there a particular moment that you were really proud of?
Yeah, I was proud of quite a lot of it. I have to say, one of my favorite scenes was probably the scene in the infirmary
Mm,
after um, they bring in little Jack. I
mhm,
just, I mean, I just felt it was so full of love and warmth and fear and family. And I mean, I just felt there was so many things going on there. And then when Nathan ties his little
ties his
shoe, and yeah,
shoes. We saw it.
it was like, yeah, that was really a really moving
Mm,
scene for me. And then, of course, when we were shooting it, the one we shot right after
mm.
was when Faith gets the phone call.
Oh yeah.
So it was quite a, yeah, kind of, it was quite impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, couple of scenes, but yeah, I love that scene. It's just a quiet little scene, but
Mhm.
um, it really turned out really well, I thought, and
Oh, it
had a
did.
lot of stuff going on in it. So yeah, that was probably one of my little hidden gems, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, to see, and we kind of got a glimpse of how it would play out with, Nathan and Elizabeth being there together, now together, taking care of little Jack, but Andrea and how she, played out as, the doctor, delivering all of that, and even her Faith's interactions with May, and them just kind of wrestling with like, what are the potential things that this could be. It was really amazing to see, and yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Wow. And it was getting us prepared for episode 11 too, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Any interesting behind the scenes moments? Some collaboration that you did with any of the actors? Anything that we always like to know? Was there anything that you're like, oh, if you guys had seen this play out?
Well, I mean, I I loved a lot of the trunk stuff because that, well, first of all, it had Ben in it. And at first when it was funny when we were doing the four of them coming out, and then Ava gets in the car and then drives away, and then Ben comes out and he's just supposed to come out. But he didn't. He just he comes out and he's running down. I'm like, I think we're gonna have to move the camera back because
Yeah.
like we just like we have to get all of this. So yeah, that was a super fun ending. And I was like, I wonder if they're gonna keep this. Anyway, they did, so I was
Uh-huh.
really happy about that because you never know, like we send in our cuts, and then
Yeah.
of course, the writers and the network have their own ideas, and so
Uh-huh.
you never really quite know what's gonna live and what isn't gonna live.
Yeah.
So it's great when all those little extra moments um, make it into the show. I always love that. So yeah,
That was it was fun to see even like the way that he came out, but then behind him is Lee and Nathan and Rosemary and Elizabeth. And I think it kind of like grounds people watching in like it's Hope Valley. Like
yeah.
everything's gonna be okay. The choice to have was there conversations about putting Nathan next to Lee, like that order. There was even chats about that, like, why is Nathan standing next to Lee? Why is Rosemary? I'm serious. Like, this
I
is
don't
what we
know. I
do.
mean, it was quite a complicated scene because not that particular scene, but the scene before it was quite complicated.
Hmm.
Because we have, Rosemary and Elizabeth talking to Ava.
Yeah.
And then, um, and also, um, Nathan was with them, but then he's just standing there, and which felt weird. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, and I think you should go and look for the car. You go look for the car, and that way. And originally it was Cavan, it was Lee that said, "Oh, the car's here," but I'm like, "Well, you could be here anyway behind the bar, so let's do that." So then I got rid of Nathan. Nathan's like, and Cavan's like, "Yeah, good," because otherwise, yeah, he's such a tall man too, and he's just standing there watching these three women have a conversation. So we get rid of him. But then that puts him near the door. And so then when they're leaving, we had shot the exterior first of them all coming out. And then we have to try and make sure that Nathan comes out in the same place that he came out when we did the
Mm,
outside. This is always the problem when you shoot things backwards, is that
yes.
you think you've thought of everything and then you realize you haven't thought of everything. And so that was kind of funny too. How do we had to get Ava out first, and then I think it was Lee and Rosemary, and then
Yeah.
finally it was Nathan and Elizabeth. But obviously, because of what, anyway, so that was kind of a funny, yeah. How do we do this? Like how, because I hadn't totally worked it out because we shot the end first. So then
Gotcha.
when they just end I think they just ended up standing there. I mean, obviously we wanted Elizabeth and Rosemary together.
Hmm.
um and we had just done the scene, where Ava tells her story, and we have Rosemary and Elizabeth standing together in the middle, no, like on the end, and then we have Cabin and Lee, and then Mike. So it was a little bit like uh, mirroring that conversation
Hmm.
where the two women had been standing together and then the two men had been standing together because it was the women's story,
Yeah.
really. And so they needed to be together as opposed to the two couples being together. So
Mhm.
it was a choice that they stand with each other.
Got it.
Why the men stood that way, I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't remember, but that was a choice to make, that it was their story, because that's one of the things I think that we're always trying to remember and make sure it plays is whose story is this,
Mm-hmm.
that we're here. So because there's so many people in the scene, but whose story is it? And to make sure that it tracks through the whole episode so that you're not featuring people whose story it is not. And
That's
you're always
good. Yeah.
making sure that, the right people
Mm-hmm.
are, because it makes it's a tiny thing that those two women are standing together, but
Mm-hmm.
they should be because this is
Mm-hmm.
the end of that story for them.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. And I'm campaigning that Nathan and Lee will get to hang out more in season 13. I feel like that's the next relationship that Nathan needs to develop. So
Nice.
we got a
I
glimpse of it right there, right?
There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely wasn't pitching ahead, but I love that.
We'll
So
go with it. I always like to ask our directors this question because you get to know the characters so well. But if you could play one of these characters in Hope Valley, who would you want to be?
that is such a great question. There's so many great characters, but honestly, I think I would play Florence
Oh, cool.
because, first of all, I love that character. I love that she's sort of in everybody's business.
Yes.
She's a kind of a hard exterior, but a soft inside. And yeah, I think that I would like that. And she knows everything. She knows everybody. She knows everybody's business. Um, and I was super lucky that I got to direct their wedding.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, yes.
yeah. So, I really got to know those characters well, like right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I think that if I was there, because I'm probably not like a main character, I think I'm a know everything character. So I think I would be that character.
That's awesome. It's funny that the directors tend to be they tend to want to be the characters that are just a little bit mischievous. Like
Oh,
I get some Rosemary and now we've got Florence, so that's awesome. We'll add you to the board.
okay. Oh, I love it. Who wants to be Florin? Who wants to be Rosemary? Is that Elise?
She does. Yeah, she does. And actually, there was somebody else. I'll have to go back and look that I asked that question, and they also wanted to be Rosemary. So it's two for
Aha.
Rosemary right now. So
Aha.
yeah, but
Yes.
Elise
Okay.
definitely did.
She
So
would make a great Rosemary.
yeah, because you direct a block, which is 2 episodes, you guys are often handing off scenes and storylines to the next person. Is there a storyline that you would have loved to have directed all the way through the season?
I really would have loved to do that Gatsby storyline. I was like, what?
Mm,
I can't believe I don't get to do this scene. Yeah, I love that. It was really fun. And the art department, oh my gosh, knocked it out of the park. I thought Kristen knocked it out of the park. I mean, she
yes.
did a beautiful, amazing, fantastic job. And the actors obviously love doing it so much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that is the one that kind of got away for me. Yeah, I would have liked to
Mhm.
do that one.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was pretty. That was the one that when I talked with Allie, she was like, when we saw how all of that came together, we were like, wow, like
Yeah.
our wheels started turning. And Kevin even shared, he didn't remember exactly who it was that was sitting back off camera, like maybe one of the second ADs or something. And I know nothing about any of that. But he said that somebody just sat back and he was just like, this is amazing. Like just
Wow. Yeah.
took it all in.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah, my
amazing.
favorite my favorite set transformation though was that movie theater. I was
And it
like, come on. I
that was
couldn't believe
Sarah's
it.
that was
Yeah,
Sarah Maberly's favorite.
I couldn't believe it. I was
Yeah.
like, I even have a before and after picture because I couldn't believe it. Like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah,
And
amazing.
for anybody that's been at Jamestown and to see what it looks like before all of that, I was just like, and then even the way that on the behind with the 2 buildings behind it and even a little bit of the judge's office, I was like, how in the world did they pull that off?
Yeah, yeah. Even when you were looking at it, you're like, how did they pull this off?
Mark,
I
wow.
had to like I saw it and then I had to go and see the shots because I was like, okay, it looks really amazing,
Yeah.
but how did they shoot it? So then I had to go and look at the footage to see, because that was really amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. It was great. Well, it has been a delight to talk to you, to get to hear about the block that you directed. Thank you so much for sharing. It was an amazing season, and we're so glad that you've been with Hope Valley for 5 seasons now. So, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking about the show, and it was a pleasure. You had some great questions, so thank
Well,
you.
thanks. Great visiting with you. Hopefully, we'll get to visit again down the road. But
Yeah,
thank you again. Bye bye.
bye.